You have somebody that's interested in fat loss, but yet their liver is just so burdened. What if there's a potential here? All of this is a potential, but that anger, if it's never addressed, good luck on the fat loss. Good luck on trying to do anything in that realm if the liver is burdened by suppressed anger. The difference with, let's say, us, probably a terrible business model, but I'm in the business to show adults how to parent themselves.
Is there anything you want to start with? I mean, is there anything you don't want to talk about before we start?
No, man, nothing bubbles up as about not wanting to talk about stuff. So I think so you can surprise me more, bro, if you like. I'm open, I'm game. Thanks for inviting me on, and we'll just see where it goes, bro.
Let's have fun.
Cool.
Right?
Yeah, man.
I'm gonna go ahead and put on a mask for a bit when I introduce you, and then I'll probably be myself afterwards.
Sweet, man. I wonder which mask I'll put on during this talk.
Well, welcome back to Soul Center Wellness. My name is Alejandro, and today we have Josh Limas. He's a friend of mine who I met at a 6-month program called Illuminate. Illuminate is like an inner work program where we talk about shadow work, parts work, and we basically get to know ourselves in a deeper level. Going through this program, Josh has been, man, he's been a heck of a guy. And I do want to say that Josh is he's very good at what he does. And so that's why I thought about him and having him on this podcast. My first question is, who is Josh Limas?
Well, thanks for having me, brother. Happy to be here. Coming out of the gate with a cool question. Shoot, man. Who is Josh Limas? I mean, I could probably riff and give voice to who I think I might be. So I'll probably just throw out some pithy answers and we can play with that. Yeah, man. As far as I know it, shit, man. I'm a newly father. I'm a brother. I'm a son. I'm a curious, very curious individual. Coach, husband, a friend, and parts of me are a rescuer, a deep lover. Yeah, man. That's kind of what's coming up right now.
You mentioned rescuer, and you know, I find you to be very courageous. You stood out to me in one of the videos we had in a 6-month program because you opened yourself up and you told everyone about your business, which is hard to do. And you mentioned that you are a rescuer. What I'm thinking is you're probably trying to find a balance, you know, in that rescuer archetype. Or maybe you're trying to figure out where you fit. And is there even like a balance to it all? Is there anything to fix?
Yeah, man, I love that. I think I'll start with the balance piece. I think there's a light and shadow to every archetype. You know, I'm mentioning rescuer, for example. You could interchange that for maybe a savior, for the most part, I think everyone will get some type of flash image in their mind when they hear rescuer. So any first responder, a police officer, a fireman, a doctor, if you will, someone that's going to save you, right, in some form or fashion. And so for me, you know, you gave voice to this program. And I think the words you shared there were some some very similar words that I might share as well. Yeah, it's a deep program where you get to know yourself better in the company of others also doing the same with curiosity and wonderment. For me, yeah, the rescuer is one of, let's just say, many faces of Josh, right? But I would say it's probably a strong one. And so uncovering, seeing what that represents to me, being a savior, like what does that really mean? How does that show up in my normal day life? And so, interestingly enough, a lot of these stories kind of will trail back to a younger age, or at least for me. I was probably about 2.5, maybe 3, and my mom got breast cancer, and I had to have one of my aunt to come and take care of me. What's super interesting is a young child and being an observant father now to actually the same age. She's going to be 3 next month. And it's fascinating to me how quickly a child will notice and observe in the parent that's supposed to be there parenting and providing safety and security. They're, in my opinion, extremely intuitive, and they're always watching and soaking up everything. And so my daughter will notice, what's wrong, Dad? How can I help? And she's the roles are reversing. And so let me just pin that for a second. And then being what I recall, 3 years old, and my mom getting breast cancer and sick, doctor visits, that part of me wanted to help her, and I couldn't help her. Let's just say, without awareness or understanding or never unpacking that, I've carried that my whole entire life. And let's just say it's buried or it's underneath, right? Like you mentioned shadow. So this is maybe the shadow piece of it, is not knowing that I want to save my mother, but being in this coaching realm as an adult now, right? If I didn't have the awareness that I might project that onto my clients, whether that's you, Alejandro, or let's just say a female client, could be triggering. How am I projecting onto that female client that I'm there to save her and I'm important now once she's, quote, fixed or saved? That can be a very slippery slope as a coach. And so with Illuminate's helped me greatly to understand those aspects and those parts and pieces of me, or maybe what that comes with, let's say, the rescuer archetype. Coming back to the balance piece, there's two sides, right? And then how can you find yourself in the middle? And I think doing this type of work, the inner work, wanting and having a desire to understand, and even, like you said, the courage. I think it takes a tremendous amount of courage to even question your stories. Yeah, is that even true? Did I really want to rescue my mom? Or as an adult, is it even true? How do I turn my partner, my romantic partner, into my metaphorical mother and wanting to save her? I wonder how many relationships are even aware of that piece on how we project on our partners romantically and turn them into our mommies and daddies and wanting to save them, or if they're sick, or if you get sick and you want to be saved, and that whole dance of like victim rescuer is very fascinating to me. And I think I'm biased, and I think if everyone dabbled in this work, boy, you might understand a thing or two about yourself a little better. And yeah, bringing this back to that balance piece is important for me in working into those stories and through them. I can sit here and give voice to it now, but like tremendous pain as a young kid watching parents suffer, and then working into that story to this day. What did little Josh need when he was 3, and not having his parent there to take care of him? That's challenging. So working with those stories today has been extremely helpful for me to show up as a more whole and complete adult and coach. And and how that shows up in my current life with my family and my friends and my clients, and it's been a fun experience.
And I would like to think that meditation helps with awareness, or maybe you're just learning tools, but you start to see little things that you used to not see. In the podcast that you were in previously called Deep Life Podcast, so shout out to them. You said that when you went through that Illuminate program and starting to figure yourself out, you came out like the Neo in the Matrix, and how you were, super aware of all what's happening in your life. How you acted with mom, how you acted with dad, the women you attract. Why did you attract them in the first place? Right? And including, this is referring to one of the videos at Illuminate, you also talked about your bonus mom. Do you remember that? And how that was a traumatic time of your life, but you didn't know that until you opened the box. I'm just like, man, it's just tools, man. Tools are so powerful, but there's also tools that does the opposite. I'm starting to figure out like what suppression looks like for me when someone is going through a rough time and they're in their minds and they want it to stop. Let's say that person doesn't meditate. That person has this negative thought they perceive as negative thought, and they say, stop thought, stop, to make it stop, or shake it off. Shake off the energy. Let it go. Is that suppression?
Okay. I mean, I would probably use the slightly different language in terms of deflecting or bypassing. And you can pull me back, but I want to speak to two things here. Interestingly enough, with meditation, that's a tool. I would offer all of these things are tools. Inner child work is a tool. It's not an end all be all panacea. Shadow work is a tool. They're deep, they're effective, and it may or may not work for everyone. Meditation may or may not work for everyone. And there's several different types of meditation. So even with the meditation piece, being that it is a tool, and let's pretend for a moment that you've landed on, okay, walking meditation works for me. Cool. I use that almost daily. Now that on the side, if I'm having a challenge, you mentioned something along the lines of a hard time or a challenging moment, whether that's daily, weekly, monthly, you're not going to meditate your way out of that, in my opinion. And so maybe said it in another way, you can't think yourself out of an emotional distress or an emotional challenge, right? Emotions, it's kind of like you have your mind, and then the emotions for me, they're visceral. They're living in our body. Our organs, our glands, our tissues, our skin, from head to toe. So I've noticed being in this, let's just say, health and wellness space for 10 or 11 years or something like that. Most people, maybe now, right, like what you and I are initiated into a space where we include our emotional realm. And that's a big piece that when I look out in the coaching space and even therapist space, people pick and choose that one. And I think it's a beautiful gateway into our challenges. Yeah, if we're deflecting and not honoring these emotions or sitting with them and feeling into them, they're going to come up again. And more times than not, that anger is, for an example, anger is probably attached to a story, who knows, last week, 5 years ago, 20 years ago, and let's say something's happening very similar in your day-to-day. That anger is without saturation, without actually feeling into that anger to begin with. I would say it's just compiling into your body, in my belief, that then diseases start happening in certain organs and glands. Like let's take our anger, for example, and apply it to our liver. How's your liver health? Is it backed up? Is it burdened by your anger? And now you have somebody that's interested in fat loss, but yet their liver is just so burdened. And what if there's a potential here? All of this is a potential, but that anger, if it's never addressed, good luck on the fat loss. Good luck on trying to do anything in that realm if the liver is burdened by suppressed anger, as an example. And so, while meditation is great, I would say, what are we using these tools for, and to get really specific. And so I'm saying quite a bit, and please, I don't know if that's answering the question, but let me know.
I'm lost. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, that makes sense, and that brings something else in my mind about coaches. Before Illuminate, before seeing you, I was hopping from coach to coach, trying to find answers, and nobody, when I say nobody, not one would talk about this kind of stuff. Not one would actually hear me. And no wonder I would move from one coach to another, because nobody would understand me. You know, it was always about superficial stuff. Now, mind you, I was in that realm. I was in that state of go, 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 got to reach my goals, and never what Alejandro wanted. It was what my dad wanted, and it was what they wanted. And now, deeply understanding these concepts, these tools, I'm starting to see that, because even these coaches are tools as well. And I would consider us, whatever you want to call it, inner work coaching, holistic coaching, but these type of coaches are tools, and they can ask you questions for you to dive deep into your own self. I guess my question is, do you have a coach right now? And are you still diving into some other parts of you that need support?
Yeah, a direct coach, no. Do I have the community? You're mentioning Illuminate quite a bit, and after going through that program, understanding the work, um, doing the work, um, which I'll add, no one can do that work for you. No coach can do that work for you. It's on you. And back to like the courage piece, and patience and willingness to actually look at parts of self that you've probably never looked at. I know I'm projecting, but to piggyback on your own wisdom and what I hear you speaking to your own personal experiences, yeah, how many coaches out there actually have done any self-reflective work? Probably very, very little. When I look out to the coaching space, all I see is people telling people how life works. And I got all the answers, and I'm going to tell you how it works, and I'm going to be so seductive in my language so you can think you don't know how to take care of yourself, and so I'm going to go ahead and take care of you. In other words, I'm going to parent you. And I know for some folks, when that lands in their ears, it's triggering. And I would just offer get really curious about that. I wonder why. The difference with, let's say, us and an Illuminate coach is probably a terrible business model, but I'm in the I'm in the business of, and it's from the heart. Like, I have a true passion to show adults how to parent themselves. And once you learn to reparent self, that's a practice I do every single day, to answer part of your question. Yeah, I've been with the community, I've done the work, I've done Illuminate for a year and done previous self work and had a coach prior to that. And I still do it, but I show up and I choose to do it every single day. Oddly enough, yeah, I'm an oddball, but I now understand these emotions that bubble up, or if it's not bubbling up, I'm like drenched in sadness. Oh shoot, what's going on? And so I know how to speak to that inner aspect of myself that could be that 4-year-old that's scared, that was never strong enough to keep his mom and dad together, and he had a divorce, and being 4 years old and carrying that as an adult back to the rescuer. That guy is that part of me is still in me. So I honor that piece, right? Not that I have a direct coach, but I know how to work with self. And that's what's really beautiful is like, let's say you go through this program, you're going to walk away a different person because now you have the awareness and you have the capacity and you have the understanding and you have not only knowledge, this isn't really head knowledge to a point, but with application, it's embodied now. You're going to walk around different. You're going to see through a different pair of glasses. Having that, and then also having, we have private calls, as you know, being a part of the community and getting together. I would offer, not because most people in my experience, yes, don't do a tremendous amount of self work, or let's just say they're few and far between. So having a touch point or having a group to be with and have a shared language and an understanding and that are also working on themselves or shifting from self-identified shame, like I am shame, versus, well, I experience shame. There's a difference here. I've been addicted to shame probably I'm 37 years old. So gosh, I still work with myself to this day, but shifting from I'm not shame, I experience shame. And so to have a group and community to be with has been tremendous and helpful. And so, yeah, having that luxury or having that is also advantageous in my growth and, keeps me afloat, if you will. So, yeah.
What do you think is, oh, sorry, Mike, what do you think is the driving force behind that?
Behind what part?
Getting to know oneself.
Mm.
Because we were here, right? We're in the superficial realm. Then we're here in this awareness stage. Mm-hmm. Then what's next? What are we trying to get to? That's the question. Yeah.
Oh shit! I mean, for me, I'll speak for myself and offer maybe what I think others might be after is, as a general theme, gosh, being super young at 4, being in front of a psychologist, and through my whole life, I've probably seen about 8 different therapists. And I'll echo, you said you've seen a bunch of coaches. I've seen therapists, and I'm not one of them. And it's not to knock therapy, but let's just say it's very heady and we can talk all day about our problems. But coming back to the emotional realm, is extremely important, and it's there. I think we have the emotions for a reason. I don't think Source or God gave us these emotions only to hide and deflect and ignore them, and so on and so forth. So coming back to allowing self to feel these emotions and working on our stories is a big pivotal part for growth. But coming back to that question of why, I've always been curious. I've always, as a theme, like observant, curious, always like having a hunger and thirst for more, maybe understanding, and maybe going through my own experiences of lower T trauma, etc. As a child, you think something's wrong with you. My parents were sending me to different therapists. Well, something's wrong with him. And then now, in hindsight, I'm like, well, they didn't know how to handle themselves. What was their level of emotional intelligence? What tools did they have in their toolbox? It's not a judgment or a critique, but merely observational. I don't think we really had much other than here, go help my kids. Something's wrong with them. So having that, for me personally, I've always been curious. I'm like, well, yeah, I want to understand myself better. So that's me. Now, I think through common myth and different cultures and theologies, I think man has always had a deep satiation for, well, what is man's purpose? Now, not every, I'm going to project onto most, like, it's not that you find these types of people that are really hungry to understand and want more in life. I think those are certain individuals that seek that. Me being extremely curious and wanting to understand self and maybe getting closer to source, like that's been a strong desire for me for as long as I can remember or recall. And so Yeah, I think there's two parts depending on your upbringing in your life and your experiences. And did you experience trauma or things of that sort? I think those folks are on a journey. We're all on a journey, but particularly the ones that quote suffer are going to walk into these certain spaces or find certain theologies and religions and practices to understand self better. And so I think it's different for everybody, but I would say it's the soul's journey, if you will, the soul wanting to understand and what is the purpose here. That's been my experience. If that helps.
Yeah, it does help because it's been my experience as well. And I've been playing around with what is universal truth? And is that one of the truth? And I wonder what else can be truth. One of the other ones I was thinking about was negative and positive. So my question is, what's your universal truth? Or at least you can name maybe three, two, if you
Mm.
have any.
So many things come up for me when you say negative, positive. I mean, as far as I understand it, I mean, we're here on Earth where we, you and I, humans, experience life in polarity, like you're giving voice to negative, positive. Call that force, call that energy, a frequency. That's how things operate as far as I've seen it and experienced it. Maybe that's universal truth. I don't know. I don't claim to know. I think because I've given voice, I'm very curious. So I've looked into all types of different theologies. I was brought up in an Abrahamic Judeo-Christianity, experienced a tremendous shadow side of that as a young kid, experienced a lot of pain and suffering around that. At the end of the day, for me, I can only speak to the universal truth. I would say maybe that's the umbrella of all, like capital God or source, without any quote theologies under that. I would say everything else just kind of trickles under that. It's all just different language. Like here, you and I are here in the Western culture, so there's going to be a heavy influence with Western esotericism, is in other words, Christianity or Islam or Judaism. I think of the Eastern practices and pantheism. All of these will claim to have the truth. I'm now in a place where, well, what's true for Josh? If I'm an expression of source, if I'm an expression of God, which I believe I am, I'm going to operate and navigate through listening more to my body and allowing space to receive, allowing space to operate and find out what's true for me. And that might change moment to moment. That might be different next week. That might be different next year. That's what comes up for me when you say universal. Sure, there's universal laws. I have the Kabbalion book on my shelf, and I've read the Hermetic principles, and yeah, I think it's really cool stuff, and it's interesting stuff, and maybe that's a pattern through different lifetimes of universal truths. That's cool. I'm operating from a place now, yeah, what's true for me, what's appropriate for me, and then coming back to this place of, can Josh find balance within his journey? So that's where I'm at currently.
Is there any times where you find yourself searching for answers via internet, via YouTube?
Yeah, man. I'm probably always searching, um, which is actually super funny. I'm glad you bring that up. Yeah, my nature or nurture, whatever it is, I'm a seeker, man. I'm a seeker at heart. So yeah, I find myself getting carried away with whatever it is. If I'm into something, I'm diving deep, as you know. I'm a deep diver in that sense. So whether it's shadow work or it's, gosh, if it's in relation to food, I will dive deep to try to absorb as much information as I can. That's me personally. And what's coming up for me right now is coming back to this conversation of self, and the soul's journey, if you will. Is supposedly there's like three books that they say are the only three books important. I don't know the third, but one of them is the Bible. The second one is the Book of the Soul. the book of self, if you will. So lately, yeah, as I notice my interest on the outside world, whatever that looks like, illuminate has taught me really to, well, what's the book of Josh? I would say this is probably back to how many people do we know actually do the self work. Maybe not a lot of people are familiar. Maybe they're just not familiar yet. But the book of the soul for me has been really occupying me for the past 4 years. I think we're all books. We get to rewrite our stories if we need to. So I'm constantly rewriting stories. This takes time, this takes energy, this takes patience, this takes diligence and courage and heightens moments and then low moments. But I do that with self, and I think it's super cool. And yeah, to answer your question, I've done both. I've had to come out from that because I am a seeker, and it's like, oh, I can rewrite a story about my 4-year-old. Did he make the right decision? I get to go in there and rewrite that script. I believe that we are co-creators of our experience. So if that's partly true, are you saying I get to rewrite how little 4-year-old experienced that? Yeah. And then whatever happened at 15 years old or 12 years old or last week, this is the book of self where I get to go in and get curious and question and re-experience and come out and experience life in a new way. I've been doing both. I get to do both. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but I've been fascinated when I heard that. The book of the soul, how many people will crack open the book of self.
Who's the author?
No, what I'm giving voice to is the book of Alejandro, brother.
I know.
And that's curious, man. You get to ask yourself, yeah, well, who is that author?
That's funny you're saying this because I had no idea that I get to do that. In the past, I was like, this is who I am. Like me or hate me, accept me. This is who I am. And, obviously you can look at that in a positive way too, maybe, accepting yourself entirely. But what I'm saying is that in the past, I would look at myself as a fat guy. And that was the lens, that was the way I was walking around as that fat kid. And I was ashamed and sad by it. And knowing these tools, I didn't realize that I can look in the past and I can rewrite my story and I don't have to live that way. And I think most people, it's been my experience, but most people don't think that they have a choice. I got to know this later on throughout my life, like later on. I'm just happy and grateful that I get to know that now at this age. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Oh man, two things come up for me. One, I'm envious of you. I don't think I was your age when I started doing inner self work. So there's that. And you mentioned something about other people not knowing and maybe they have a choice. I would just say, said in an entirely different way, they're sleepwalking. They're hypnotized, and so myself inclusive. I'm not haven't arrived. I don't think any of us quote arrived and just stay in this arrival moment 24/7 hours a day. I think that's a bunch of BS, and you will get gurus and all sorts of figures out there telling you once you're there, you're there. No, I think we have moments of awareness, moments of enlightening moments. There's been many moments for me. So yeah, for sure, this has been maybe a similar experience to what I hear you saying is life becomes very different once this happens for you. You're now familiar with projection. You're now familiar with your inner child. You're now familiar with your inner critic. That might be the voice of mom, dad, and uncle, grandma, grandpa, family values. Most people don't know. So guess what? They're experiencing life through the lens of their programming from mom and dad. And I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying, like, without awareness, what if you're just regurgitating in your talking head, and and also embodied into your physiology? Like my daughter's 3, dude. She mirrors me, what I say, my actions, but it's fascinating. You want to understand yourself better. You want to understand what you might have picked up. Go hang around some kids, dude. You blow your mind. Yeah, I would offer navigating through the world today with the awareness of it's been challenging, it's been beautiful, it's been scary, it's been frustrating. There's been moments where I want to get on the roof and tell everyone, like, you need to do self work, and you need to experience the full body of the full spectrum of your emotions. Like, I'm biased. I love emotions, and as far as I know, we all have them. And most people will do what they need to do because they don't know any better. And so that might look like overeating or drinking or projecting their anger onto you or me. And it's our problem. And if we don't have the awareness, and now I'm being a codependent people pleaser and I'm a victim and it's my fault now. Like, if you don't have awareness of all these moving pieces that are happening all the time in relationship with other, whew, it gets wonky on both sides. Whether you're blind to it, you're unaware, you're hypnotized, or you are aware of it now, and it's like, well, how do you navigate now? It's a journey, man. And back to having community, having a place to be with folks that understand this and are doing the work, I would offer is super helpful. Or else, like, I can imagine at some point me falling off, or just going back into routine if not having a touch point of, like, getting on a call with you. Or I still have challenges every single day, man. I have I have an infant and a 3-year-old and a wife, and I have my own life challenges, and I think that's what we're here to do, is experience life. And as far as I know, it's gonna be bumpy, it's gonna be smooth. And do you know how to navigate through life now? Yeah, a long-winded answer of, yeah, I for sure have experienced challenges where people aren't well versed, do not speak the language, and learning to honor myself in the presence of others, where I don't need to be some person putting everybody on game. Like, that's a cool trick too, because if no one's asking, then here I am. Am I really doing the work? So I think there's constant work to be had, or to be sifted through. And again, it takes willingness and patience. But boy, is life much more sweeter once you start working with parts of self, and having more patience for self and kindness for self. Is a Yeah, I wouldn't change it for anything.
So, what came up for me, could it be that most of us fear of the unknown and are uncomfortable diving into these realms?
I would say 1,000%, brother. Fuck, I'm scared. I get scared every day. Um, Stepping outside of inner self work, shadow work, inner child work, whatever label you want to use. I think our physiology on a biological, evolutionary base, we're here to make sure we're safe and secure. Absolutely. Or that's our ass. That's our life. Maybe we're not coming back to camp. Maybe we're not coming back to our families. And so now in modern day society, I would offer things are much different. We do have this higher level of safety and security. So I'm going to project, say most of us do. We have our homes, we have a roof over our head, we have clean water and food. So let's say that's taken care of. This work is extremely scary. It can be. I keep coming back to this, like, patience piece and gracefulness. I'll speak for myself. There's times where it's like, yes, depending on the individual or the client, there's a tremendous high level of safety and security that is intentional for the client to feel comfortable enough to start to traverse through these stories that are scary. That takes time. It takes a level of safety, absolutely. And so as a coach, that's number one. It's not rushed. It's not fast and the furious. It's not hit training. This is different territory. depending on the degree of what that story is and what it represents to the client or myself, and I get to come back to these stories when I do my own personal work, and then with the clients, like we get to come back to it, and maybe it comes in pieces and parts, and which I find is beautiful. And but yeah, I would say this is unknown territory. And if it's okay if I share an example, what's popping up for me is for coaching in general with like this type of work, inner work. I think a great example, at least for me, is I went hiking with a group of folks where we went through abandoned tunnels from 200 years ago, something like that. And you do need to wear a headlamp light. If you're in there, it's pitch dark. You can't see what you're walking on. The next step could be your last step into a treacherous drop, or the right corner is a dead end, what have you. So there was a group of us in this guide that's like, I've already went through these tunnels. I got you. I'm going to kind of show you the way. We're like, okay, cool. We got our headlamps on. And he was our guide. For me, that's a lot of like what coaching looks like in this landscape is I'm not above you. I've maybe walked through these dark tunnels, my own dark tunnels. I have my lamp on. Oh, shoot. I arrived at this dead end. Okay, that's fine. We're going to pause, see what's going on here. Maybe we're going to hang a left now. And you're traversing through all these dark areas and tunnels, and you don't know what's coming up. And we're walking slow through these dark tunnels. Like, I don't know where I might step. It might be my last. It reminds me a lot of like coaching. And there's the level of shame and fear we turn way down. Like, I get it. I've worked into these experiences and into and through them. Yeah, it takes time. And I would say there's sessions that it's not every time there's going to be a deep, intense session, right? Like you and I have worked together, and it's like there was a chunk of time where we had some intense sessions. And then there was a time where, you know what, I'm navigating what kind of feels like after I already went down that tunnel over there. It was really dark and scary. Now we're back in the main tunnel. We're just kind of taking our time. Or you know what? We're actually going to just sit right here. And I don't even want to keep walking. We're going to actually just take a break. And so that session might look completely different now. Like we're just going to chill. Said another way, I don't tell you what to do. Like you get to guide it. Like in the weirdest way, like we're navigating together. What's comfortable, right? We want to take a break. Cool, we're going to take a break. I hope that kind of paints a picture of, yeah, myself included, walking into the unknown can be very scary. And so with this work, it takes a hand of softness and gracefulness. Yeah, so I hope that helps.
Man, you talking about this story reminds me of my own story. Where I do like to dive deep and throw myself into the waters without a life jacket. I think we're similar when it comes to that kind of stuff. But when we were going through the coaching program and you and I were coaching each other, but I think you did most of the coaching, there were times where I was just like, okay, I need to stop. I need to chill. I need a life jacket, because it's getting intense. I just want to let people know that you get to do that too. You get to wear a jacket, a life jacket, and you don't have to go so deep like that. Yeah, you get to choose, as long as they want to grow, or at least not grow, but be more aware of what's going on. And I remember I was coaching with someone else. I forgot his name, but we were coaching, and at the end of the session, I told him, next time we get into another session, can you give me everything you got and kind of like steering the boat and let me have it, because I wasn't really diving deep in that moment. And then he said, no, you get to choose how deep you want to go, he says. And that was almost like an aha moment when he said that. I don't think I'm telling you the story pretty well. In my head, it sounds good. We get to be the driver. But yeah, man, it's been 1 hour and 5 minutes, and I do not want to take more of your time. To close this out, is there anything you would like to tell people about your inner coaching work, what you do?
Sure, brother. And I'll just draft off your own wisdom there really quick, to maybe put a bow on it. What I think you're saying is, yeah, man, we meet the clients on where are they? If they want to hang out in the shallow end, absolutely. Like, we're gonna hang out in the shallow end. You want to tread into the deep end? Absolutely, I will go there with you. You want to pull out your snorkel and start going down even deeper in the deep end? Cool. We're gonna do that. You want to come back up for air? Cool. You want to go back to shallow end? Cool. What I'm saying is, I respect that you are an adult and you have autonomy, and I'm there with you, not there to tell you what to do. And kind of bringing this full circle is, yeah, outside in the coaching landscape, I get parts of me get triggered because it's like there's just coaches out there telling you what to do and what how to do it. And so yeah, I honor the client. I honor you every time, and funny enough, in the weirdest way, like I wonder who's really the coach and who's the client in that space to even make this conversation more weird. So I get to learn a lot in the presence of another brother or our fellow sisters that do this work. I get to see myself in them, and we do it together. I think it's probably the most sacred, beautiful place I've really had the experience to be is in some of these coaching sessions. So yeah, whether that's working with yourself, Alejandro, or working with me, or pointing folks in the direction of Illuminate, yeah, hit me up if interested. Questions, concerns, hate mail, wanna join the community, I'm all for it. You can find me on Instagram. That's probably the place where I'm most active, at journey underscore with Josh. But yeah, man, it's been a pleasure to just sit here and share this time with you. So thank you for having me.
No. It's a pleasure to be in the same presence as you, my friend. Also, a little disclaimer for the audience: this isn't a Illuminate infomercial, but it is a good program.
Yeah, you mentioned it quite a bit, and hey, man,
I know.
of course, yeah, it's no, I wasn't aware of any type of infomercial or anything like that, but uh, definitely give credit where credit's due, man. It's been a place where I've grown tremendously, and so definitely want to honor that. And so yeah, thank you.
Awesome, my friend. Until the next. Namaste, y'all. Have a good one.
Peace.